morning, good evening, whenever you are watching this. Welcome to the Vitalmoments podcast. So glad that you are here checking it out. My name is Amy. I'm the host for today and the connections coordinator at our Poplar Hill site. And I'm joined by Dean John. Good morning.
Giving me titles that I haven't earned or deserved yet, but that's all right.
So I called you Dean for those who are so confused. I thought his name was John, not Dean. You have been up to some fun over the last couple of weeks. You want to just quick give us a summary of what you have been up to alongside leading Clinton?
Yeah, for sure. I've been working with kind of leading up the greenhouse residency program here at Vitalpoint Church, and that's a program that I think Ron kind of dreamed up a couple years ago, and it's finally happening. And we just started this January, so it's been like 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks old, and we have 4 young adults who are going to journey with us for 2 years in the residency program. For 2 years, they're going to receive theological training. We got courses that they're taking. They're going to earn a certificate at the end of that, as well as we're pouring into them with leadership from various leadership lessons from various sources as well. So they have like those kind of classroom and training kind of aspects of things, but then they also are getting hands-on experience working for Vitalpoint Church. And you'll probably run into one of these residents. I always want to call them interns. They're not interns. They're residents. Yeah. It's if you're at right now there's a couple of them working out of Poplar Hill. There's a couple working out of Exeter, but they will be moving around, and they'll be at various different sites throughout these 2 years, getting a well-rounded experience of working in family ministry, working in creative arts, pastoral roles, guest services, all these different kinds of things. So it's a very exciting program, and I'm really enjoying being part of that, and glad that I have that opportunity to work with them.
Yeah, you've been doing such an incredible job, and we certainly have 4 amazing, I almost called them interns again too, residents to kick off this program and patient with us as we're sort of sorting out and figuring out what this is going to look like. We had this really cool moment though, I think it was their first week. One of our board members who just finished their term and is not a part of the board anymore, but still very much a part of the Poplar Hill community, she popped into the office and they were working on their stuff. And she was just chatting with them that she remembers Ron a couple of years ago pitching this, and then having this moment where where were all of you a couple of years ago? And the one was I even loved the Lord a couple of years ago. It's just so neat to see the way that God will use this. I know maybe we'll look back on this conversation years down the road and be like, oh man, hopefully look how far we've come and seeing what is happening with these people. So, and that's not the point of our conversation, but just want to keep people connected in what is happening around Vitalpoint Church. As well, we've got Ron and David, our lead pastor, Ron, David, our Exeter site leader and connection and community pastor, are in India still for a few more days. Continue praying for them. We are hearing such incredible reports that I don't know, I feel like we're gonna have to do our own Vitalmoments podcast around from India or something, but I'll leave that to them. But we are still continuing in this series that has been deeply impactful, that has started some really great conversations all around Vitalpoint, finding peace in the struggle. And we are not shying away from some hard-hitting topics. And this weekend, you brought a beautiful conversation all around God's word, as well as your personal story on the topic of depression. So before we get to it, because that's obviously a big topic, last couple of weeks, if you've been checking in with the podcast, I've actually been using the first question on the Connect Group Leader Discussion Guide. So around Connect Groups, we have these smaller groups of people coming together throughout the week to have a conversation around that topic of Sunday, to go a little further with it. And John, you work on that. You do that material, and I have been absolutely loving our icebreaker question. So because this is a heavy topic, let's start a little lighter. And the question that starts off some of the Connect groups this week is, you talked about this story of Elijah. We'll get into a little more. And Elijah having this really like it sounds like a depressive episode or moment in his life, a very dark period where he feels like I can't do this anymore. I can't go on. Just let me die. So he finds himself in the wilderness under this broom tree, and an angel comes, wakes him, and says, all right, get up, eat, and then goes back to sleep. So what kind of snack would you hope the angel brings you?
Right.
It's a great question, right?
Yeah. I kind of forgot that I came up with that. I should have remembered, then I would have an answer ready to go. No, if an angel's waking me up, what kind of snack? Man. So, yeah, that's Elijah gets, it's described as cakes.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. It's not like a cake that I would want, probably.
We debated angel food cake. Like, is that what's happening?
Yeah, angel food cake. Most likely like an actual, like, unleavened flat kind of whatever. I might actually want like a real cake. No, I think I do like baked goods, so I will say that I do enjoy those kinds of things. So I'm gonna say, but I'm gonna go with some kind of chocolate. I think
Ooh.
I don't have a specific one on my top of my mind, but I'm gonna say like some kind of chocolate would be
Yeah.
amazing to wake up to. Just be like, here you go.
Especially if you're like feeling pretty down. That's
Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah, if you're in that kind of moment, you're like, you just want like comfort food.
Yeah.
You want something like chocolate would be great.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard. I feel like I maybe go charcuterie or like a big bowl of like homemade mac and cheese. Like when we're talking
Oh,
food.
comfort food. Yeah, yeah.
That's not a snack though. That's definitely a meal. But anyways, you did a beautiful job outlaying this topic. I would encourage people, as much as we're going to talk about this right now, to like actually go on YouTube or wherever you listen and listen to the full length, even if you won't need to listen to it again. But you hit so many points. And what I love too, by the end of your talk, you really used your story to help people understand both sides of this as someone who is supporting someone who is experiencing this, or even identifying, hey, someone in your life is experiencing this, and the person experiencing it. What was your hope coming into this conversation for us as a community? I mean, you definitely touched on, I never thought I'd be sharing this story in this way.
Yeah.
But entering into this topic, you were very purposeful, and yeah, just unpack what your heart was for people to understand and walk away with.
Sure. I think one of kind of the goals that I had, one of the thoughts that I had is really trying to bring this topic into a place where people are maybe have a bit more understanding of what maybe that experience is like for people, and especially maybe for someone who like me, I was following Jesus at the time, and for the community at large, just bringing that understanding so that people maybe bring more grace into that situation. And I think I used the word grace a few times in my talk, and that word has really stuck out to me over like thinking about this, thinking about my own experience, thinking about as I was writing this and getting to share it, of like, can we be people who are filled with grace? And a lot of times we think about like what God has done for us, and God is gracious towards us, full of love and compassion, and we also should be like emulating that to other people. And I think we do a good job of that in some situations, but in other situations, maybe because we don't understand it, or maybe because there's a fear or stigma that have been attached to certain things, like we need to extend grace into other areas as well, especially in this area of depression, when if someone's going through that kind of moment in their life. That's what they need. They need a lot of grace. They need a lot of grace and understanding. So that was one of the goals that I was kind of like thinking of, like encouraging that kind of aspect of it for the community, but also like reaching out and sharing my story, because there are going to be people that are experiencing something like what I went through. Maybe it's worse. Maybe it's chronic in their situation, and it's not something that we necessarily talk a lot about. And
Right.
I think for someone who's actually experiencing that, hopefully they can hear, like it can be hard to hear, but hopefully they can hear some of the things that I shared to know that like it's okay, that they're not alone, they're not some outlier, and there's like that they should be ashamed of this or feeling this way or anything like that.
Yeah, I think you brought to light a topic that does, like you said, does have a lot of stigma around it. And sometimes there's maybe even that sense of the small town, everyone knows everything. So there is this almost pressure sometimes to just be like, everything's fine, and to breeze past that and not actually acknowledge where we're at, or just think, well, everyone goes through hard stuff, and kind of brushing it aside without acknowledging, hey, like there might be something larger going on that, like, as much as you try to muscle through it, you're not gonna be able to muscle through this, and taking that step out of isolation or whatever. But yeah, what does it look like for us to be a community of people who are brave enough to admit, hey, I need help, I need support, but also a community that creates that safe space where people can reach out and say,
Yeah.
hey, or even more so, take a step further and go, listen, I'm noticing you maybe aren't the greatest. You're saying you're okay, but I'm paying attention. You know what I mean? Like that's one thing to ask someone to like step out and say, hey, I'm experiencing this. But it's a whole nother thing. What does it look like to have a community that goes, listen, like, is there something else going on? Like that we're just not gonna be okay with the status quo of like, oh, we're good, we're fine, and move on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't want to just pretend that everything's okay. I think we do a lot of that in many different aspects of our lives. I mean, Ron talked about that at the very beginning of this series, and I
Mhm.
kind of brought that back again this week because I think it's really true. Is that we have a tendency to put these masks on, and we have a tendency to cover up everything, and for other people to like perceive us in a certain way of like, I'm good, my life is good, or I'm fine. I don't need, I don't want to appear weak, but we also do it to ourselves too. We
Mm,
also like, we also want to like fool ourselves and be like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And if we keep saying that over and over again, somehow that would just like magically make it better. Or if we just ignore the problem, then it will go away on its own. So we put masks on, we put a false face on, not just for other people, but also for ourselves in many ways, I think. And yeah, we just need one of the things that we need to do is be able to have conversations about difficult topics like we're tackling in this whole series.
mhm. I think too, even as you're talking, I mean, I very much identify with that. It's easy. Like most people that are close to me know my tagline seems to be it's fine. Like I'll be like, oh, this is going on, but it's fine. It's fine. I literally actually almost wore, someone gave me a shirt at Christmas time that said, it's fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine. And I almost wore it for this to be like, this is not how we should live. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'll save it for another day. Um, but it can be hard. And I think too, sometimes the culture in which we find ourselves in, the cultural context, there's this hustle, this go, go, go mentality that do we ever really truly pause and stop and take account of where we are at? And not only that, but you really laid out a beautiful idea of what does it look like to be fully honest with God with where we're at? Not like, okay, it's fine, or like, I just trust you and keep going without actually acknowledging what's going on inside of us before it's too late. And so you talked about several different people in the Bible who just poured their hearts out. What does that, how do those stories help us today in understanding this conversation around depression?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we can look at the Bible and we have an example of someone just being
Yeah.
brutally honest before God about what they're feeling, what they're going through, what they're experiencing. I look at those examples and it brings me like encouragement, but it also makes it's like it's okay to actually be that way before God, to like lay yourself bare and open before Him. He's the creator of the universe. He created you. He created me. So, um, he God has this heart where He does want us to come forward with these things. I just thought of this of like how, for those who are putting faith and trust in Jesus, what is the only real requirement is like repent, to actually confess our sins, right? We
Yeah.
actually confess our sins. We actually say like, I can't do this. I'm a sinner. I need you, God, in this area. So can we take that a little bit of that same idea towards like more aspects of our lives? Like, God, I'm depressed right now. I'm feeling like there's no hope and there's no future. Like bringing all those things towards God, because really he already knows them.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the struggles of our lives. So there's this aspect of being honest to God, but it's also being honest. Again, it goes back to that kind of being honest to ourselves as well. And I'm sorry, I don't even remember what your original question was. I
Well,
kind of
neither
went
can
off on there.
that. I think it actually ties in a good chunk of what you were kind of summarizing in some of what you said this weekend, too, in that, yeah, that confession is what brings, like, yeah, that forgiveness and that freedom, confession to God. So in that space. And then God also talks about, or the Apostle Paul, I believe it is, in the New Testament, talking about the confession and community brings healing to us. So there's that piece of, we're
Yeah.
honest with God of where we're at, and he gives us everything that we need, and then he also gives us the community in which we can find healing. And so there's this piece where we confess to God and confess to others around us and find healing and hope in that. And
Yeah.
because the Bible is littered with all these stories, we can be encouraged that, like, hey, listen, if King David in the Old Testament, and wrote so many of the book chapters of Psalms, if he can be described as a man after God's own heart, and yet has these, like, God, where are you? My soul is in turmoil within me, and all these, like, just honest, raw moments. I mean, how much more then does that invite us to step boldly into that space with God?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It really, I just looked at a few examples, and there's so many more that we
yeah,
could look at through the Bible. So I think, you know, I just want to ultimately end like that's an encouragement to us to be that way before
yeah.
God as well. Not try to be fake or putting on a face in front of God.
And I love the way that you landed this, because I mean, it's a heartbeat of ours at Vitalpoint Church to be a safe place for anyone, irregardless of where your beliefs or ideas lie, at to come and feel safe to explore these things. And so we know many listeners may not even be devoted followers of Jesus, but you acknowledge in this, and I want to sort of end this way, that you can experience these things and still have faith, that
Mm,
it's not out of a disbelief that you are experiencing this, or it doesn't have to lead you to disbelief. And yet at the same time, you also pointed towards the reason you can walk through this or have strength in the midst of the struggle, or peace in the midst of the struggle, is because of the hope and trust that we can have in Jesus. And he made this beautiful invitation. So it, why don't you just, for just a minute, as you come out of this conversation, because I know we're getting a little on here, but there's so many beautiful pieces, just speak to those who maybe are realizing actually the level of darkness they're experiencing on both sides. So the encouragement to the believer, encouragement to the one who is still exploring those things. What would you
yeah.
say, especially as someone who has wrestled through these things?
Yeah. I'd say like at the at the live site, I was here in Poplar Hill yesterday. One of the things I landed on at the end of well, you guys got three services. It's a beast of a morning. Um, the one thing is like we always start first and foremost is seeking out God, and for some people that's going to be you need to take that step of faith and trust and put your faith and your trust in Jesus. And that's the first step, because everything I said in the talk that I gave, everything I said about that was based on that foundation, that foundational truth. Um, and like I can't even imagine where I would be if I didn't have Jesus in my life, if I didn't have God, if I didn't have that foundation. And that's where we start. And we always start there. So some people need to put their faith and trust in Jesus. And I don't say the word need lightly. Like it's not like a suggestion. Like I can suggest, I truly believe that we need to start there.
Yeah.
God is the foundation for hope and for healing in our lives. And for others, that maybe you are following Jesus and you're kind of experiencing these things, and it's a real struggle. And I just want to acknowledge that, and I can't sit here and go, it's going to be fine. Like
Yeah.
I can't make the promise like that because I'm not Jesus, I'm not God, but Jesus makes that promise to us.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately it's through, we don't know when that promise will be fulfilled
Yeah.
for us as well. Like we want it right now, and I understand we want that immediacy, that from that healing, that relief
Yeah.
in the moment, but sometimes that's not going to happen.
Mm.
And, sometimes, I can't sit here and say I have all the answers to those kind of questions of like, why is this happening to me? Why does God allow suffering? Like, get into big questions like that very, very quickly. But my foundation is Jesus Christ and God's truth, which I find in his word.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible says that God works all things together for good. An important understanding is that God is the one who gets to decide
Yeah.
what is good, right?
Mm.
Not me, not someone else, not the world, not society, but God gets to decide what that good is and what how he's going to work things out towards that end.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I did reference this in the talk yesterday, is in 2 Corinthians 12, when Paul talks about the thorn in the flesh. And God's answer to Paul was not to immediately heal him of whatever that was. We don't
Right.
know, but whatever it was, God did not say, yeah, I'm going to take this away from you right now.
Mm-hmm.
He actually said, you're going to endure this because I can step into that moment through your life, Paul, and you will experience my power and my grace in this weakness of yours, but so will other people.
Yeah.
Other people are going to experience my power and my grace and my love as they see you struggle with this, but they also see you continue and commit yourself fully to me. And
Mm-hmm.
that will tell, and that will be a testimony to other people about who I am. And so sometimes, yeah, we go through it, and God is like, I'm going to give you what you need to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes in hindsight, it's like, for me, it was like, yeah, in hindsight, I see it now. I did
Right.
not at the time. So it can be very difficult. So I want to encourage people to kind of keep going as well. If you're following Jesus, just continue to keep putting your faith back in him. Surround yourself with community. It's
Mm-hmm.
a huge part where people, a couple things on that. People are going to come alongside you. They're going to speak into your life. They're going to speak truth into your life, remind you of the truths maybe that you've believed in,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also just going to be a comfort to you. That might,
Mm-hmm.
if you continue reading about Job, he has some interactions with his friends, and they start out well. They come.
True.
Job has like all his children die, all his wealth is taken away, and he has 3 friends. And the first thing they do, they literally just come and sit with him, and they don't say anything because his sorrow is so great, right? And they just sit there and they're with him. And sometimes that is an important aspect of this as well, is to be with people. And you don't even necessarily have to say anything. So if you're like worried about like, what am I going to say to comfort, just be present with them.
Yeah.
So there's a huge part of community aspect of this as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember reading somewhere like the power of presence, of just
Yeah.
like a God's presence, but also like just presence of people that love and care for you. And yeah, I'm just here, and we don't have to talk. We don't have to do anything. I'm just gonna be present with you, which is hard because we all just like want to fix stuff, right? But yeah,
Yeah. The tendency is like, oh, I just want to get in there and like fix it and say the right thing that will just make it all better. Yeah.
yeah, it's so good. Well, thank you so much, John, for stepping so boldly into this. And I pray, actually, you know what? I pray, but also there is just such a depth of belief in me that we are going to continue to see fruit of this conversation in weeks and months to come as God works powerfully through your testimony and the truths that you pulled from the Bible that we can stand on. And also just a really quick encouragement before we sign off, because I know this, we're getting long now, but if you are looking for more community, if you are looking to grow in depth of community and are done with doing this alone, we really encourage you to come and be a part of any of our Vitalpoint sites. I mean, we've got 4, soon 5, which everyone's bugging us about. You will find out when you find out. But come in person and commit to that, especially on the days that you don't want to be there. Those are the days that you need to be there. Because not only do you need this, but other people, your presence in the room makes a difference. And consider being a part of a connect group or a serving team. These are really great spaces where we get to be shoulder to shoulder and do life together, even if it's something simple as like cleaning some toilets together. You get conversation going, and be bold in your conversations this week. Ask the hard questions, go further than, oh, hey, how's it going? And don't be satisfied with the like, oh, I'm good, like inappropriate ways with appropriate time.
Yeah.
Those moments boldly and just go, is that the truth? Or are you really are good? Because that throws people away. Anyways, John, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you to all of you for listening. And I really encourage you to listen to the full length one. Just so phenomenal. You did such a great job. And next week we wrap up this series. So do not miss out on that. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.